This is MTG Burgeoning, and in this video we are going to update and upgrade our Kathril Aspect Warper EDH deck. Thank you for joining us for another installment of the Up and Up series. Today we are updating and upgrading our Kathril Aspect Warper EDH deck. In the description of this video, you can find the deck tech for Kathril. You can also find the complete up-to-the-moment deck list as well, in addition to this build's video primer series. The last time Kathril appeared on an Up and Up episode, we were doing all we could to maximize card advantage. In this installment here, we are trying to refine our mana. We are going to do all things that have to do with mana. We're going to swap in some better lands. We're going to make sure that we can play some cards that, well, let's face it, are going to do better things for our mana and our mana in general than what we have already. We've got 5 coming in. That means 5 are going out. And the first card joining the 99 of this build, it is Nature's Lore. Difficult to find a copy of this for some time, and then we decided, well, it's time to make sure that Kathril gets a Nature's Lore. We're going to pay 1 and a green at sorcery speed to search our library for a forest card, and then we're going to put that bad boy onto the battlefield. This is going to ramp us. This is going to fix our mana. This is just one of those spells that if you've got green, you need to play with it. So Nature's Lore is going in, and taking its place, it is Pernicious Deed. Now, usually, the majority of swaps in these up and up installments have to do with one card doing better than another card in the same type of arena. Like if we're putting Nature's Lore in as a ramp card, it's going to replace a pre-existing ramp card, making sure that we're making sure that we're strengthening that part of the deck. Well, sometimes we need to slightly weaken a strong part of a build in order to strengthen one that just needs a little bit bigger of a push. And in our colors, white, black, green, we have no shortage of removal spells in the 99 of this deck. So let's identify one of our weakest, and here it's Pernicious Deed. And when I say one of our weakest, I don't mean because it lacks punch on the battlefield. I mean that we're trying to make sure that we limit the number of cards with the potential to harm us optimally to 0. Now, when we get Pernicious Deed in play, we pay X and we sacrifice it, and then we destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with converted mana cost X or less. Notice it does not say your opponents, so this is also going to hurt us. Let's not hurt ourselves any longer. Let's make our deck a little faster with Nature's Lore, and let's make sure that we don't include or keep any removal spells that are going to be detrimental to us. So Pernicious Deed is out, and Nature's Lore is in. All right, card number 2 going in. Oh, look at that. I spoiled it already. Spoiler alert for card number 3. You can see it. It's a double-face card, but we're not talking about that one yet. We're going to talk about card number 2, and that is going to be Conduit of Worlds. We have an artifact here for 2 and 2 green mana. We may play land cards from our graveyard. That, in and of itself, is Crucible of Worlds. And in a deck where we have cards that are going to the graveyard, we have fetch lands and such that we can get back from our graveyard, having a source to bring them back to the battlefield helps to ensure that we do not miss any land drops. Kathril is a very healthy 5 the first time we cast it. Kathril is a lightning rod for attention, and it's not inordinately difficult to imagine a game of Commander where we need to cast Kathril 2 or 3 times throughout the duration of the game, and having Conduit of Worlds on our side of the battlefield, or its Crucible Worlds-like effect, is going to help to make sure that we can continue to get lands on our side of the battlefield. Oh, but it gets better than just having a Crucible of Worlds attached to it. We can also tap it, choose target non-land permanent card in our graveyard, and if we haven't cast a spell this turn, we may cast that card. If we do, we cannot cast additional spells this turn. We can only activate this as a sorcery. So, if our cards are running a little low in our hand, or we just need to get a creature onto our side of the battlefield, which, let's say, if for some reason we decided to have Kathril go to the graveyard instead of the command zone after it gets destroyed, we could simply cast him from the graveyard with 5 mana as opposed to incurring commander tax and casting it from the command zone at an inflated rate. That's just one of the many options here with Conduit of Worlds. We have many instant and sorcery spells that we could just keep in our hand, but if we need a permanent spell from our graveyard, Conduit of Worlds gives us that option. So, the Conduit of Worlds with its Crucible of World-like effect is going in, and it's going to simply flat out replace Crucible of Worlds. Not really too much to say about this card. This card is Conduit of Worlds for 1 less mana, and it does not have the option of casting that non-land permanent card from our graveyard. So, this is not me saying that across the board in all spectrums of Magic, that Conduit of Worlds is better than Crucible of Worlds, but here, in this deck, with our Abzan colors, we will gladly replace the Crucible with the Conduit. All right, card number 3, you saw it here. We spoiled it a little bit. It's Kathril, Cave of Eternity on the back, but on the front, it is Journey to Eternity. Here we have a legendary aura for 1 in Golgari colors. We enchant this on creature we control, and when an enchanted creature dies, we return it to the battlefield under our control. Then we return Journey of Eternity to our battlefield transformed under our control into the aforementioned Kathril, Cave of Eternity. Here we can tap for 1 mana of any color, or we can pay 3 in Golgari colors to return target creature cards from our graveyard to the battlefield. Please note that that last activated ability that costs the Golgari colors does not require us to activate it as a sorcery. We could end of turn instant speed tap the mana needed to activate this recursive ability, and we can do it at any point during the game. So, a couple of different things to talk about here. If we have this Journey of Eternity, say, Journey to Eternity, put onto Kathril, Kathril dies somehow, because we're hoping it's going to be indestructible, but still stranger things have happened. Kathril dies, we don't have to worry about it going to the command zone, because we can return it to the battlefield with Journey to Eternity, which saves on our mana investment, and it also saves a potential accrual of commander tax. And then when we transform it, we get a land that fixes our mana, and a land that has a recursive ability that we can activate at instant speed. This is going to be a very sneaky good card in this build, particularly for the purposes of helping with the mana and keeping Kathril alive. With Journey to Eternity going into the 99, coming out is going to be Luxior, Jada's Gift. Here it gave equipped creature +1/+1 for each counter on it. There are no Planeswalkers in this build, so its Planeswalker ability is null and void here. It costs 3 to equip to our creature, and let's face it, this was going to be included for Kathril because it was going to get a +1/+1 for each of the keyword counters placed onto it. What ends up happening, though, is this card is not really needed if Kathril gets as many counters on him as possible. Because with all of the double strike that we could have, and will have, there's a little wink and foreshadow for future installments of this deck on the Up and Up series, the +1/+1 is irrelevant because Kathril itself gets +1/+1 for each of the keyword counters placed onto it, and it only needs to get up to 8 +1/+1 counters in order to deal lethal commander damage with double strike. And with all of the evasion that's also included here, Luxior is just taking up a valuable spot, and in this type of build, I believe Journey to Eternity can do more than Jada's Gift. All right, MTGBC, the last couple of cards going in are just a couple of lands that are going to help to upgrade the land base. Here we have a couple of slow lands going into play that are just perfect for Commander. We have our Orzhov slow land and our Selesnya slow land. We have Shattered Sanctum and Overgrown Farmland. They come into play tapped unless we control 2 or more other lands. With those 2 lands going in, we are going to identify 2 lands that they can easily replace, and that will be their respective check lands, the Isolated Chapel and the Sun Petal Grove. Each of these lands come into play untapped if we control a specific type of basic land, but it's much easier for the slow lands to come and play untapped than the check lands because we only need to have 2 total lands for them to come into play untapped. So that will upgrade the mana base and make our casting of spells that much easier. All right, there you have it, MTG BC. 5 cards going into Kathril, 5 cards coming out. Let me know your thoughts about these changes in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, a channel for all things Magic.